right, thanks everybody. Nathan Lancebaum, I'm the CEO of Sunshine Health, and yes, we do, Lori, we also get it confused. There's a lot of companies that we're affiliated with and associated with, but Sunshine Health, we're proud to be a sponsor here today. So you're probably most familiar with Children's Medical Services Health Plan. We operate that on behalf of the Department of Health. Very happy to do that over the last few years. We also offer health benefits to people at all stages of life, folks that are on Medicare, Medicaid, and Marketplace. In all, we serve over 2.3 million Floridians. We believe in giving back into the community that we live and we work, and that's why we're so proud to partner with the Family Café and done that for years. And then also new this year, as she said, we are sponsoring Old McDonald Sensory Farm. And so if you haven't stopped by that, please make sure that you get by that and see that wonderful space. We've got some great speakers for you today that I want to introduce. All three are actors and identify as autistic and portray autistic characters on the Amazon Prime show As We See It. We've got some fans and some watchers. That's great. You may have seen it. It's about living independently and navigating the challenges of work, relationships, and everyday life. You know, it's relatively rare for actors with autism or any other disability to portray actors that have those same experiences. So it's wonderful that we have them here today. You know, when I found out that I was going to be doing this introduction, I had to do some good primary research. So I started watching the show, and I can honestly say it is a wonderful show. It's probably one of the best shows I've seen in a very long time. You know, it's unique to see a show that makes you happy, that makes you laugh, that makes you cry every once in a while. And most of all, I think it's really important that the show provides all of us with a little of understanding of where they're at and the challenges that they face. And I think we can all use a little bit more understanding. And so with that, I want to introduce each of the actors. So Rick Glassman, who plays Jack, he is a comedian and host of the podcast Take Your Shoes Off. He previously starred in the NBC sitcom Undateable. Next, we've got Ann Pien, who plays Violet. She discovered acting as a child, has worked with Academy and Emmy Award winners, presented for a National Nobel Laureate and the U.S. Secretary of State on Climate Change Solutions, and even gained global attention as a Mars One candidate. And then lastly, Andrew Duff. Andrew portrays Violet's boyfriend, Douglas, has worked on the off-Broadway show Uncommon Sense and was featured in the December 2020 BuzzFeed article, 5 Autistic Actors You Should Be Watching Now. And so and we also have Matt, who's gonna be our moderator, Matt Martucci. So before we get started, we've got a clip of the show that we're going to play.
You ready? I know that you can do it. Let's check in on how our weekly goals are going. As a part of moving into this apartment, we all agreed on a certain set of goals.
Yes, I need to get and maintain a job. Check. And I need to make friends.
Well played, Jack.
Thank you, but I didn't play well. You played poorly. You're very old.
I'm sorry, it's the Asperger's. He doesn't mean it.
I mean it. She tanked that hand.
I want a boyfriend. It's normal to have a boyfriend. Hey, look, he's so cute.
Ooh, I'd hit that.
I Major. We live right above you.
I don't leave the building.
Why not?
Lots of reasons.
If you're lost and alone, or you're sinking like a stone, carry on.
Do you want your dad to be supporting you forever?
Yes.
I have cancer, Jack. I need to know you're gonna be okay.
We should have a date. sex on date 1 or date 2, but on date 3 we can screw, okay?
What?
My roommate's birthday starts in 92 minutes. I have to be there, and it's going to be terrible.
Are you trying to invite me to a party? That's tragic.
All that fear and anxiety that you're feeling, you just gotta push right through it. Make that fear your bitch.
Here's my bitch.
Spent my entire life trying to hide the whole autism thing.
I think you are such a beautiful person that you shouldn't have to hide who you are.
That makes me want to throw up.
All right, everybody, one more round of applause for As We See It. As Laurie and Nate were so kind to introduce the four of us and myself, my name is Matt Martucci. I came down here from the Northeast. This is my second year with the Family Café, and I'm proud to introduce Andrew, Sue-Ann, and Rick, or as they're known on the show, Douglas, Violet, and Jack.
Too loud. Sorry. Hey, got excited.
Really
It's
run
too loud.
for it.
Bothered me, so I can imagine what it did to you. Sorry.
So I know everybody's excited about what's potentially to come with the show, what could come with the show, but I want to start by going back a little bit. Let's play Turn Back the Clock.
I was born in 1984.
Not quite that far back.
In 1992, I was in second grade.
We're getting warmer. For the three of you, when you first heard about the show, how'd you find out about it?
Well, I had to audition like everyone else, but I had a really good friend, and her son is on the spectrum, and when she first had him, we met, and I told her, well, I have Asperger's, which is formerly known as Asperger's is autism, and I don't think it comforted her much, but when this breakdown came out, you know, I've been acting for quite a while, so she wrote a pitch to Cami Patton, the casting director, and I got an audition, and it was incredible. I had never seen a character that fit so many of my own innate experiences. It was like unreal, because usually I'm playing, you know, I'm not playing myself. And I do that pretty well, but it was, you know, this was a really life-changing role to step into for sure. Yeah.
I was diagnosed with autism 5 years ago, and I am, but definitely then too, was very much learning about some of these unrelated baby obstacles as a child that I didn't associate to be connected to autism in any way. And then when I saw that there was this show about it, I was very excited because I'm a fan of the guy who created the show, Jason Katims, who did Parenthood. Yep. And I auditioned for the show, and I mean, this is gonna sound corny, but they just fell in love with me.
Yeah. Not the other way around, right?
No, I liked them. But you see,
Get that out of the way.
Hollywood's a tough town. No, I was kidding, sorry. There you go, looking for a joke.
That thing's heavy.
It's a heavy
All right,
bit.
I'm done, took so much. But I auditioned, and thank God they gave it to me, because getting jobs are very hard. Duff, take it away.
Will do, Rick. I was actually diagnosed at 2, so I've sort of, like, just my whole life, I've sort of related to being on the spectrum, and
all that stuff. And when I started acting, I was always really drawn to autistic roles. Typecasting obviously is a thing, but also because there is so much variety in playing individuals on the spectrum that you could do so many different things. And you guys actually hopped on much earlier because the pilot was filmed and then COVID happened, and so things got shut down. I actually auditioned about a month before
Oh, I didn't know that.
I got on. I sent in a taped audition. I was actually walking back in New York from getting my first vaccine shot when my agent called and said, hey, can you fly out in 2 weeks? So mine was like a very rapid turnaround and very whirlwind. I got to the studio and I was like, I don't know what's happening. And then actually, like, Sue-Ann and Rick were two of the first people I met and really made me feel comfortable. So that was just a big old whirlwind for me.
Sue-Ann did a pretty good job of answering this in terms of just how much she identifies with her character. But Rick, Andrew, for both of you, you know, as it relates to Jack and Douglas, how much did you feel like, you know, you were playing some of yourself? Like there was some of you in that role in particular?
I relate, when I was a kid, I didn't know how I was being received. It wasn't the same as Jack, but the idea of saying whatever on my mind, despite how other people might take it, wasn't even something I would be too conscious of, unless I had learned otherwise. But the idea of just saying what you want is probably where I connect the most with Jack. That and loving computers, but I don't think that's a big part of the character, but I just want you guys to know I'm pretty good with computers.
If you've seen this guy's YouTube channel, you know exactly what he's talking about.
Tell him about it. No.
We'll do it later.
Save the pitch for the end. Save the pitch for the end.
We only have 90 minutes.
And with Douglas, actually, you know, a big part of what I connected with Douglas is actually the physicality of Douglas. Growing up, a lot of, especially in my teenage and college years, there's a lot of masking. And if you're not familiar with the term masking, a lot of autistic people growing up to try to blend in with neurotypical society will sort of hide certain behaviors and certain things about themselves. And I think with Douglas, what was really awesome about him is that he just kind of lets it go. He's somebody, he's braver than me in a lot of ways. I think he just was really super okay with letting all these intricacies go. So like certain things like you know, facial movements and tics that I might try to pay more attention to, or stuff with my hands and stuff that I pay more attention to in everyday life, I kind of got to let go with Douglas a little bit, and I thought that was really a very cool thing to explore.
I like, pardon the interruption.
No, you're good.
I wanted to piggyback off that I had, when I was a kid, a lot of tics and mannerisms that I was embarrassed about and try to hide as well, that I didn't even think to bring that I was doing with Jack. A lot of facial movements, and I noticed that when I started, which I kind of got away from as I got older, but even just doing them the littlest bit, since we'd filmed the pilot in 2019, I have these facial tics again. And I do this every now and then. But coming from this place of kind of understanding a little bit better and accepting who I am, it's interesting to have these things that I used to be embarrassed about, now I don't even consider. I just have these tics and they are what they are. That's YouTube/Rick Glassman.
To see more of them, go to YouTube/Rick Glassman.
For all three of you, on a day-to-day basis, what would you say are your biggest challenges when it comes to everyday life?
I mean, I can tell you, but by far and above anything else, OCD. My obsessive. My OCD is and anxiety. Has gone like this for a lot, and it got better. And COVID, as I'm sure a lot of people in here, it made it a lot worse. And I'm still trying to get back to where I was before. But meeting people and touching and saying hello, and which I'm happy to say hello, but you know, I'll just look down a lot. That is by far the biggest one for me.
It took me a long time to do normal everyday things, like I have to plan extensively. I was taught earlier on how to use a calendar because I couldn't I didn't have executive functioning skills. And so there's certain things that I have to put into my repertoire as a habit, like washing dishes, things that you wouldn't, like I forget, like, oh, there's like nail polish on my toenails I haven't taken off for months. And it wouldn't bother me, but apparently it bothers other people. You know, it'll just like, they'll grow. So there's little things that if I'm not aware of that will call me out as different. And as a, you know, when I was growing up, that was really difficult because I would get made fun of and bullied a lot. And I also learned that if I don't hide my differences, like Andrew talked about with masking, I could put myself in danger. I think it's different for a female on the spectrum in the world. And so there's a really strong need, like I had to find ways to keep myself safe. And yeah, that's an unfortunate side effect.
I remember in our preparation for this, you had talked about on our Zoom call, you know, that the Asian community typically isn't terribly receptive to somebody that has the challenges of being on the autism spectrum.
Oh yeah, no, I mean part of why I do act from a very young age. My mom was very clear about grooming me she like, get me, smile. You know, I had I'd win speech awards and speech meets because I was doing these Winnie the Pooh monologues in first grade. And so from a very young age, my mom was really aware that I was different, and she was very worried about that. And so, and in I think the Asian community, that's why this character, it was incredible that they put an Asian female. I don't think there's ever been an Asian female character in the history of scripted work in entertainment. And so in our community, if they don't see it in the world, like in the culture, they don't want to deal with it, they don't want to acknowledge it, it's dangerous. And you know, one of my best friends, you know, her son's on the spectrum now, and we've been friends forever. And she was like, because of you and how you were when we grew up, like, I understand my son better. It's like so incredible. It was like so amazing.
That's a great segue. How do you think the show is changing how people see not only the autism community, but the disability community?
I could speculate some, but I'll say directly that I have received a fair amount of messages on Instagram and emails from people who not only were they not too aware of autism and what it meant, but since the show came out, they have 5 people in particular have actually since been diagnosed with autism. And though it's a show that's scripted and it's for entertainment, to feel and to laugh and to cry, etc., it also is a very honest, strong representation of what it means, as the show is, as we see it through the eyes of those with autism, though it shows other people's characters as well. But having people empathize with these characters in this situation, not because they lack empathy, but because they were never in this situation. Before this show, I had one friend with autism. Now I have none. No, I'm just kidding. Now I have many. And I better understand it, and people being introduced through entertainment for something that is also, though it's not its design, educational and making comfortable of these things that maybe people would be like, oh, I don't want to have to ask questions about this thing. Instead, they get to watch from TV and fall in love with these characters that ultimately may have turned them off if they didn't give them an extra few minutes.
I think one of the things that this show does really well, which not, because there's been, you know, autistic representation in media before, but it tends to be very singular, or it tends to follow, you know, a certain stereotype of autism. I think what the show does, not only is there a lot of like research into what autism can mean for different people, but just by seeing 3 different autistic people going through different challenges and dealing with different things, I think is really important, because it shows that it is a spectrum, that there are people with different needs and different places on the spectrum, that it's basically that the spectrum is not singular. I think that this show really shows that people do need different things. And that can be a big challenge in the autism community, because even though we're all part of the same community, people might be looking for or fighting for different things based on what their perspective is and what their needs are. And I think a strength of this show, and hopefully for any future shows or movies or books that come out, is to show the depth of the spectrum and really show that there's just, there's that old saying by Stephen Shore, if you met one person with autism, you met one person with autism. And it really does ring true, and I think the show does a good job of showing that.
From
Andrew Duff.
From an advocacy standpoint, how much do the three of you see yourselves potentially as advocates? Do you think of yourselves like that?
Yeah. I mean, I've done, being diagnosed so young. It's interesting. We've had discussions about, being diagnosed later in life, and I've met people that if they are diagnosed maybe at late teenage or early adulthood, they because they're new to the community and new to learning this, I think they are even more gung-ho about being a part of it and really discussing, because I think it sort of brings a new life to finally being able to put a name to it. For me, having been diagnosed so young, I think for a very long time it was just sort of an interesting part of my life that I would volunteer and I would do the occasional talk and stuff like that. And then it wasn't until later in life that I really got to meet more people in the community. And I think learning how broad the spectrum is, because I was working as a videographer at an event in DC, and there were people protesting the summit that was there. And it was confusing. It's like, why would you protest an autism summit? And then I had a conversation with them, and I learned that there's a lot of different social political stuff happening in the autism community. And that fascinated me to no end. So I think my advocacy, I want to say I'm almost like a researcher, because I'm fascinated by all the different perspectives that are out there. And again, like I said, how broad the spectrum is. People's opinions on the best way to move forward and the best practices are so different. So I think more than an advocate, I'm just very intrigued in learning as many different perspectives as I can, and I encourage everyone to do that, because I think that's the best way for the community to kind of grow.
Sue-Ann?
Yeah, I mean, by nature of who I play in the show, it's one of those things that has just happened, right? And so I think particularly though, for a female on the spectrum, that's something that can look very different. And like what Andrew was saying, I became obsessed, because I wasn't aware that I knew all my entire life something was off, I was different. I was performing everywhere in life. I didn't fit in, I didn't have the right friends. And even to this day, my family's very uncomfortable. Like my dad is very similar to Jack in a lot of ways. I remember he would just spend like 15 hours a day on the computer, and he's an aerospace engineer, and he would wear glasses with no lenses in them. And my friends were like, "What's wrong with your dad? Why does he wear glasses with no lenses in them?" And later I was like, "Oh, because he got LASIK and he doesn't like changing how it feels to take the glasses off, so he still had to wear them." So, and that's something that's and he monologues, he's sitting at the table, he gets, and it was so cute, right? He's so childlike in so many ways, and I'm just like him, right? And so there's this part of me that's my mom's no, you have to be different. And then there's an innate sense of I just fit in over here. I fit in with, on set, it was the easiest place, set I've been on, because I fit in. I get along, I understand, what people are thinking. There's no I don't have to hide so much. I'm going on a tangent. That wasn't a question.
You're fine.
That was
great.
There was a question, and I was trying to answer it.
You did a good job.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rick.
Am I answering this? Is there still time left after Sue-Ann?
Good job, Sue-Ann.
So I was a bit uncomfortable with the idea of that being a thing when I first booked this show, doing press for the show, doing something like this, being this advocate. because I was diagnosed so late and still trying to understand it, I don't want to speak on things that I'm still learning about. And my mom is here, and though you may disagree with this, because mom gets a little bit sad when she found out that about this, that maybe she thought that she did something wrong or it's her fault or what I'm going to say. I didn't have very many friends as a kid. And I could name names of people you think are my friends, but they didn't let me in their house. Literally, didn't let me in their house. I'm allowed to play basketball with them, but you can't come in. Yeah, do not let me in the house. And I remember as a kid, I would have friends that, pardon the disrespect if this sounds that way, but I'm one of them, little weirdos. We were all a little bit different and a little weird, and I always connected with people that way. And when I found out I had autism, something that maybe some of people that are part of this community can identify with and some may not, but we've talked about this. It's not something that is always very clear to people. Everyone neurotypical or neurodiverse, we all have our own individual obstacles, but there are some obstacles that people on the autism spectrum can maybe relate to a little bit easier that don't display, especially when you're able to mask them as well as you can. That's why I got into comedy, because if everyone thought I was joking, they wouldn't think I was so weird, but all the jokes were inspired because don't touch me. Or don't touch that and turn it facing this way and touch the right hand only and let's hop twice.
Don't kiss the rings?
Don't kiss anything. Especially because to kiss something, you have to know if they want to kiss you back, and if you can't read facial expressions, what do you want from me? But after doing this for a bit, and doing this especially when we first started doing, promoting the show, and you and Albert and I were together, and seeing, oh, we are all, though this, so completely different, and being part of a community, which I didn't know about what you're doing here until you reached out to us, and this is so awesome and so beautiful and so great, and there's and I first noticed this with autism in particular, but at anybody who either themselves or a family member or someone close to them that has to deal with challenges that aren't typical to other people, that had to learn how to adapt in situations that weren't necessarily given a rule book to how to do it, there's a forced sense of patience that has to happen because we have to figure something out. And I found that people of this community are generally just by default patient and accepting and understanding. And a lot of times you don't even have to explain why you have to do this thing. They're just like, oh, that's one of your things. I have things. And in a place that we're in doing the television show where there's so many moving parts, and it should be everyone needs to have shorthand, and I get that. But our show was so calm and accepting and quiet and no loud noises. And it's just such a beautiful team to be part of. And I don't mean to be corny by saying this again. I really appreciate you inviting us here and doing what you've been doing for 24 years. And this is really very cool. And I'm hoping to get my face painted soon.
Yeah.
I think we can make that happen.
But also, I think it's cool that you're doing that. But you can't touch my face. But I want to watch it. I want to watch some faces being painted.
Just in the few minutes before we were doing this panel, I saw a handful of different people come up to you and talk about just how much you inspire them and their families. There's a couple, I see them sitting in the second row here, that told you about their son Kai.
Right. Yeah.
There was a gentleman whose son had just been recently diagnosed with autism.
Yeah.
What does it mean to the three of you when somebody comes up to you and says, "You're my hero, you inspire me, thank you"?
3 words. More Emmy voters. I want to comment real quick on that joke that I just made. When I was diagnosed, I found out, and we'll get back in 1 second, but I found out, I always thought I was so funny, and I found out how much I annoy people and bother people all the time. For real, I was so depressed for a few years because I stopped making jokes because I can never tell if it's appropriate or if I'm allowed to or not. And I just want to say that making a joke about something serious in front of a room full of people like this, and that you guys laughed, thank God. Because I would have got so hot that I did that again.
You thought you were going to come to the family cafe and bomb, didn't you?
No, you're a little worry. There's a little worry. You feel out with a little joke, and then you just, fix your posture if no one laughs. But similar to people saying that the show is inspired, it was uncomfortable at first because I wasn't sure if they were giving me this applause that, and I don't mean this to be self-deprecating or insecure by any means, that it isn't about me, it's not for me. Really, it's the creator of this show and the people that allowed it to be. But I know what that means. I know that I am somebody, it could have been anybody else, that is in part telling a story on a more mainstream stage. It's easier to accept that, and it feels really nice because when someone says, give somebody a compliment, sometimes it's hard to take a compliment, but when people tell me how much they love this show and what it means, I say, yeah, I know. Like, same. I'm just so grateful of this show and to be part of it.
Andrew?
It's. I was talking with some people about this earlier. There's something about it, like inspiration, especially in our community, that I think is really lovely. If people say like I really look up to you, this is going to sound corny, but I want to say right back at you, because what it really is you get to meet so many people, and I've said this ad nauseum that everyone has their own story, everyone has their own perspective on it, and I've had individuals that have come up to me and said, I want, my child to be like you. That's happened to me in the past. And my response to that is, first off, you don't want that. But joking aside, I have my difficulties too. I think it becomes very easy to look at somebody and just look purely at their strengths and then compare it. And I think, especially in the autism community, we can't be doing that comparison. I think like you could look at people and say like, oh look, that worked for them, but what worked for me might not work for somebody else. So as much as I'm so thrilled, to inspire people or to feel like, I think the most important thing is I want people to feel heard. And if I can help people feel heard or seen or agreed, they get it. But to make them feel heard or seen, I think that's the most important thing. So as long as I'm doing that, I feel good.
Sue-Ann?
Yeah, it was, I grew up really lonely. I felt really alone. It was funny because I actually, now that I think about it, I had best friends in junior high that, they're like, we think you're autistic, And I was like, what are you talking about? No, I'm just like you. Because it was like that, Violet and I share that like normality. I need to look normal. I need to have a life that's normal. I need everyone to think I'm normal. And it was damaging for my self-esteem. By high school, I didn't want to be here. I was like, this world makes no sense. Why am I here? I can't do it right. And you get to see a lot of that grief, portrayed in Violet's sadness, which was very cathartic because it was connecting to an entire community of people that I didn't know existed and actually also experienced the world very similar to myself. And it's still been quite the healing journey to be on. So I'm grateful for the people that have reached out. It's very affirming. There's always this sense of like, I'm too much. Am I too loud? What did I say? It's like, I love Rick. It's so comforting because I was like, oh, it's okay. It's going to be okay. We're going to overstep. Sometimes we're going to say things, like maybe the world could just understand. It's autism. It's like so dumb. So I don't know. So, that's my take on it. Yeah.
Let's flip the script on that question. You inspire a lot of people all over the world. Who inspires the three of you when you look at your everyday life? Who are your inspirations?
This is cliche, but my mom and dad. I think that's as cliche an answer as it is, but I think there's a lot of truth. My parents are extraordinarily resilient people, pragmatic perhaps to a fault, but also just like, you know, my parents fulfilled kind of different roles in terms of my diagnosis, and I think a lot of parental units might fall into one of these two categories. My mom was the go-getter, the gung-ho one, the one that's like, we're going to do all this research, we're going to do all this stuff, we're going to look. And I grew up in New Jersey, and New Jersey at the time was a little ahead in terms of like special ed and services, so she was very gung-ho on that. She like joined the Board of Ed to do all the special education stuff. She went to seminars and stuff like that. My dad did none of that. What my dad did was pretty much treat me as he treated anyone else. And I think, as much as my mom might disagree with this, that that's equally important. I think it's very important to have somebody that's gung-ho and giving you supports, but also somebody that's like, we are not gonna treat you any differently. My mom's gonna be so mad that you're applauding my dad and not her. But no, but I think it's a balancing act, and I think the two of them combined really, and they're just like really resilient people that have, you know, gone through their own trials and tribulations, and I've always really respected their pragmatic but empathetic approach to life, so.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
I'm going to copy your answer a little bit, and also sometimes when I talk about this stuff, especially when Mom is here, I don't want to get too emotional about it, but also my parents, and I grew up feeling very accepted at home. With all the things I had. I mean, it took me 7 minutes to put on my socks because it just didn't feel right. And like, I never felt ashamed or embarrassed if I was not included at school. I didn't feel, like, I didn't know I didn't have friends until I turned 30. I thought I was just, you know, because my mom, I took a poop and it was just like, look at this poop.
Isn't it neat?
Which incidentally, I haven't taken a poop since I was 30 either. Which is another thing. I understand gastrointestinal issues are
very common.
Yeah,
very
so
common. Yeah.
if you're out there and you haven't pooped, maybe you have autism.
Refresh everybody's memory. How old are you now?
37.
7 years, ladies and gentlemen.
But my, you know, parental figures, if you're lucky enough to have ones that are in a position to support and accept and understand, you grow up having a mom who's your best friend or a dad who says, you know, whatever the thing is. I was gonna say,
clean your room?
Yeah, but what has really, really helped me since getting this autism diagnosis and then being excited at first of like, oh, this is why, this all makes sense, and then being so depressed because of that same answer, this is why, to have someone from a young age who teaches you to accept who you are, it really is a skill set, it's a practice, it's a wiring thing, because Sue Ann and I, we grew up differently, but you were trying to mask, and that made you be a great actor. By the way, vote for Emmys. Mm-hmm. But I never even knew I had to do that. And there is a balancing act, because sometimes you have to shake hands, you have to say, I'm good, how are you? There are certain things that you're supposed to do that need to be learned, but just being accepted is so important, because otherwise there could be such shame in being different when different isn't a problem, it's just not typical. And when you feel like you are part of a community, even if it's just you and your parents or you and your siblings or whoever it is, you don't feel alone. And that feeling alone that you were talking about is such a hard thing to feel alone, because it's just a feeling. It's a feeling that exists if you feel it, and it doesn't exist if you don't feel it. And having a community, whether it's your parents, family, or who you guys are here, just having somebody is just so important. So, and also, I would have said 5 months ago, Will Smith. Because, you heard what happened. But really, he really was an honest inspiration to me, because I'll tell you, here's a specific reason. I grew up with Fresh Prince, and you saw this guy that was both really cool and also really goofy and weird and nerdy, and he was both. And that was literally the first time I saw, oh, you could still be that thing you want to identify as, while also you're this other thing that people see you as. Being around people that accept you and that are different than you is really good for your self-esteem.
It's one of my favorite lines in the show, toward the end of the season. Violet, I was about to say Sue-Ann. Violet looks at Douglas and says, "I just want to be normal like everybody else." And Douglas turns and says, "What's normal anyway?
Yeah.
What really is normal?"
You gonna answer that one?
I wrote that.
No. Yeah, it's a beautiful line.
I'm sure there are folks out in the audience that have their own respective challenges, but maybe want to get into acting. What advice would you have for anybody here at the Family Cafe who's attending, or anybody watching on Facebook Live, as to how you go about doing that? What advice would you have?
I know I just spoke, but I have the perfect answer. No, I know how to answer this. There's a lot of different ways, like you said, what worked for you may not work for someone else, et cetera. But I will say the most efficient thing that you could do if you want to, whether an actor, sure, but also just a creator, if you want to create something, if you're a director, a writer, an animator, an actor, anything, especially with how much access we have of being able to do stuff prosumer with your own computers at home, you got to make your own stuff. And one of the biggest obstacles to making your own thing is being insecure that it's not going to be good. And the truth is, it's not. Most things aren't, especially your first 50 things that you do. But it's a skill set that you get really good at, not just at being able to tell a story, but being able to execute. Here's what I want to do. It didn't look like this. But if you have an idea of what you want to do, it's really not as hard as you think. The hardest thing to do is to start it. YouTube how to edit, download free programs. I'm a Premiere baby, but people like Final Cut and Avid. Make your own stuff, and you have YouTube and Instagram, and also, right now, as we see it, Coda, thank God, did such great things. There's a big market for people who have stories that are different than what would have been typically thought as mainstream. And a lot of what you're going through in your life that you feel are challenges, which are also very interesting and specific stories that you have a voice to tell, but you have to make it. And it's okay if you make it, on your iPhone. I have comedian friends one of my comedian friends is a stand-up comedian who made a stand-up special just on iPhones, on 3 iPhones, and it looks amazing. So just make stuff.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. It took a long time, and I love it. I have a special interest in filmmaking. I understood the world through films. I love Disney. I watched Little Mermaid over and over and over, sing those songs, Phantom of the Opera. I love it. I would see a place in a film like, Wong Kar-wai's Chungking Mansions, and then fly to Hong Kong and try to recreate what these things I saw in movies, because I thought that's how I learned social skills. That's how I put on a character when I interact with people. I go into a place and I think, well, what would Kate Blanchett do? How did this person, what did Rachel from Friends interact like? And that's how I got through life. I thought the point of life was just to act and act my way perfectly. And then I had all these life experiences that I otherwise wouldn't. But given my autism, there was my parents divorced when I was 3, so I didn't really have a father around, and my mom had a hard time with me. And I kind of went out into the world on my own, and I would end up in places like the Amsterdam airport with no food, no money, eating ketchup and mustard packets. So I got really creative about ways to survive in the world when I actually had no survival skills. And I'm just understanding that, God, I was really at a disadvantage. Pardon my French, I want to say fucking disadvantage. But these are now the things this is why I love being on set. Because when you're on set, it is the most controlled environment ever. It is the safest place for someone who's autistic to be. In my experience, because I know what I'm saying, I know what the words are, I know what everyone's role is, I don't have to worry about anybody overstepping their boundaries. It's a hierarchy. The director's in charge, the producer's in charge. These are my co-stars. I know what their lines are. It is the most scripted, if only reality could be so scripted. I would have no problems. So being on set's like heavenly. I love it. I love it so much. So if you have a love and passion for acting, then go for it. But you know, I had no problems being an extra on set because I love being on set.
Yeah, I did that for a while too.
Yeah, I love, because you can learn. I was on set with Sosie's mom, Kira Cedric. Sorry. You know, I got to watch her, and I was like, she's amazing. I want to be like her.
One of our co-stars, Sosie, her mom is an actress, so coincidentally, years before, we worked with her.
Yeah, I was an extra on the Young and the Restless set when I got the call for this callback, and I was like, I don't care if I'm gonna be an actor. And you know, when you're autistic, you kind of have no ego. Like my agents have to be like, stop doing stuff like that. Like I can't tell what I'm supposed to do and not do, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. They're like, they were like having a conversation. They're like, you know, they can't figure out why you're the way you are, but I love it.
It's if you could be cast as an actor or an actress, it's great. It's so hard. It's so hard because there's so much competition. And to give yourself that advantage of why you over you, there's just, I mean, no matter how great you are, there's such a big luck aspect to it. And that's why I just really want to piggyback on this, and I believe in it so much because it's helped me, and I've made most of my friends this way. Making your own stuff is an audition, even if you don't have an audition.
Yeah.
Because then people see the story, and then they like you. And it's a great way to, I know I already said that, but just like the process that we did, I've been there for 14 years. I've gotten jobs on 2 television shows in 14 years as a regular character on it. It's just, I just got actually my 3rd, and for something, but I say that they offered me the job because of stuff that they saw me make on my own. That's just make stuff. Sorry, you're gonna talk, I can't emphasize this enough. It's such a good way to feel proud of yourself and to make friends.
Actually, that's a perfect piggyback, because my thing was, you know, I went to college actually for video editing, and I've acted in like my own stuff prior to that with friends, but I never really considered acting to be a viable career for me. It was something that I liked doing, but I didn't know if I should go forward. And I got to college, and my best friend Josh, our freshman year, told me to audition, and I said, why? And he said, you're a redhead, you'll get something. And then I did, and it kept happening, and I became friends with the drama team, and they convinced me to do stuff, and then through that, I met other theater people, and they convinced me to do stuff, and then I met filmmakers, and they convinced me to do stuff. So I think it's a couple of things. There is definitely a luck aspect to acting in particular. I think it's important when you get those lucky breaks to just not let any doubt come into your head, because I've definitely been guilty of that, of being offered something and legitimately wondering if I'm the right person for it, or getting overly nervous and saying, I don't know if I should accept it because I don't know if I'm ready. I think part of it is luck, and part of it is knowing when to act upon that luck. And Rick said about making friends, and sort of what I alluded to is community. Build people around you that are gonna help you make stuff, that are gonna support your stuff, that you could support their stuff. I think, you know, part of making your own stuff is a big part is collaborating, and I think a good thing to do in this community is to collaborate and meet people with like-minded interests, if for no other reason than to improve your own craft. So I think if I was to summarize what I just said, it would be when you get lucky breaks, act on them, and then find peers and people that are aligned with you in that sense.
We met Ian today. Shout out to Ian, who's in it. I don't know where you are, but
where's Ian?
There he
Right
is.
there.
There he is.
Ian.
Musicals. Yeah.
Yeah, he did Grease recently and is in theater, and it's just theater people. It's just, you know, even if that's not what you want to do as a profession, it's just a great community. Ian. We'll put his Instagram handle up here.
I would call anybody that figures out what they want to do at an early age very lucky. They're very blessed. When did each of you figure out that you had the bug to be an actor?
Well, it's funny because I wasn't very verbal, and so I was always very aware, but I didn't realize I had to talk until very later on. But there was this Cinderella audition at my school, preschool, and for whatever reason, I immediately was able to play Cinderella, and the teachers were blown away because they weren't used to me talking at that age. And then, you know, from there on, when my mom got me back at, 5 or 6 years old, she started to groom me, and because I was hyperlexic, I started to read really fast, And that I won the school's principal's award for most improved that year because they were like, this kid reads like a college student. And so my teacher had put me up for a speech meet, and I did a whole Winnie the Pooh monologue and performed it, and my mom coached me. And then it was when I got older, I realized that the key to, going into the world, like Violet, like to be locked away somewhere and never seen or experienced the world would have been my worst nightmare because I had such a curiosity for life. I want to be part of the life that I see around me, even, and I couldn't figure it out, and so I started to study people. I started to study like a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I would look at why people did what they did because I naturally didn't have that ability to fit in with them. And if I started to pick up their mannerisms, the way they talk, their accents, it was like I could go anywhere in the world and do anything. And I used that in most of my young adult life. And it's a skill that works for me.
For me, I alluded to this before, growing up, I watched a lot of Jackass. And me and my brothers and my friends, it started off like us doing eating like a cinnamon challenge or trying to ride a skateboard down like a curvy slide. And it evolved into little skits and little bits, and it evolved into little short films, and then we would act in them too. But at that point, like I said before, like I really always enjoyed the acting aspect of it, but I was sort of juggling a lot of stuff and making these own projects. And it wasn't until I got to college where I started, again, doing that balance of acting and video making, where acting, I realized at that point that acting was one of the few things that I just always wanted to get better at. I feel like a lot of things in my life I would perseverate on or get very invested in, and then I would hit a point where I said, all right, well, I'm done. I'm not as interested anymore, and that just hasn't happened with acting the entire time that I'm doing it. And I think that was a big realization for me of like, oh, this is something that I always want to keep improving at. I always want to do something different. I always want to keep it going. And I think, so it was around college. Yeah, around college when I, again, met more peers that were more acting-oriented and realized that it was something that I really wanted to push forward with.
Looking back, I'm realizing that I know that I always shined in situations where I could be collaborative. I struggled in school. I had to go to special school. And I remember Mom, you pointed this out to me, that there were certain things in classes I wasn't able to do, but when somebody asked me for help or if a teacher paired us off, I was able to, it was worth figuring out. And I realized that it was worth figuring out because it didn't matter to me, but connection does, and you find it where you can. And that's why I started doing comedy, because I never really knew what people were thinking or how they were feeling, but when you get a laugh out of somebody, you're connected, at least in that moment. I started playing basketball in 10th grade. I didn't really have friends before that, and then I had friends. I had a team, and as much as I love basketball, which I do, it was kind of my first taste of being part of a community. So you get good at this thing, so you're wanted in this thing. And I fell in love with stand-up because I learned how to communicate with people, because jokes, it lets you be accepted. I'm able to get them to take their shoes off if I say it funny and wash their hands 9 times. And acting, comedy, it could be a lonely thing. You travel by yourself. You're on stage by yourself. I didn't know I wanted to be necessarily doing film and television. I just knew I wanted to be making stuff with people. And I got very lucky. I got my first job was my old boss, who came to a comedy club and saw me perform. And I remember he said to me, incidentally, I did a Fresh Prince monologue for my entire set, which is, not a comedy scene. It's when he says to his dad, "Why don't you love me, man?" But like people are telling jokes, and I'm just wearing a silly jacket and doing Fresh Prince. But I thought it was funny, and I don't know what they thought. But this man came up to me. Bill Lawrence is his name, and he said, "I love how comfortable you are in uncomfortable moments." And I remember thinking at that point, I get what you mean, but what was uncomfortable? I slayed that monologue. I don't mean watery eyes, I mean bless you, I mean the tears down the face. I was great. But this idea that somebody thinks I'm so comfortable in uncomfortable moments was a skill set that maybe we all have. We know you've talked about this before, which is kind of lucking into, I didn't know we were supposed to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I didn't know that and that there's some negative sides to that when like I didn't know I was supposed to let you talk, or whatever it is. I didn't know I was being too loud or whatever. But every now and then, you get a job from it. But the point of that is finding something. That's why I love making stuff. Anything that lets you collaborate, whether it's film and television or any other job outside of the entertainment industry, if you get to work with people who you like, it's just, you get to see yourself through their eyes too, because they obviously like you.
Every one of your characters in season 1, over the course of those 8 episodes, it feels like goes through an individual evolution. Jack goes through one, Violet goes through one, Douglas goes through one. How did you each kind of see your own character transform as you got deeper into the season? Just the growth of your individual character.
I'll go.
You go.
Douglas.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Douglas's character is a big help into helping Violet's character grow, and I had that. My character had that through my dad, played by Joe Montana, who helped me, and also this girl that I felt my character forced to date because he was the nurse for my dad, so she wasn't allowed to run away from me because she was working with my dad. But my character Jack, he thought that he was getting away with what you talked about with Violet, which was he thought everyone thought he was normal, and he found out that it was obvious to other people that he wasn't. So the growth for him was going from having this secret that he felt that he was keeping and needed to keep for these reasons that he made up, to being outed and learning to accept himself. And what helped Jack's character, which is why I love being part of a community so much, is he couldn't do that until he was. External validation isn't always the most sustainable. You want to have it internally, but when you struggle with it, sometimes you need to be guided and trained. And having people around you that could offer that to you. So his journey was one of self-acceptance, which is also why I talk about why it felt so important to have that from a young age, which I have to imagine everybody who's here, especially if you have a young kid, you're already at that place accepting it because you understand that there are things you need to know. Anyway.
Sue-Ann?
The question, one more time. What, the journey of Violet?
The journey of Violet.
Yeah, so, there was this like parallel, we always talk about, I love acting classes and I've taken several that, because, it's important is to have the different techniques. So for someone like Violet, I thought about, gosh, the magical what if. What if me with my autism got to have a different type of, and I went into independent living and I had a caretaker. What if it looked different, right? And so there was a lot of parallels in terms of I understood what it felt like to want to be normal and have that normal life, but the way my life as Sue-Ann evolved, I was way more like, the first time I thought, I was like, oh my God, I might be autistic was, I got called in for an audition for The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the American remake, and apparently the lead of that, Lisbeth Salander, is supposed to be an autistic character, and I was going in to audition for a different role in that, but when I read the book, I was like, this is exactly how my thinking process is, how I experience the world, who I am. And so because of my different life and experiences, I had to find a way to go back to an innocence with Violet that, if Violet was protected and didn't lose all that, what would her journey be like? And it was incredible because absolutely Douglas helped with that. Because Douglas is so free in who he is. And he's like, who cares about being normal, right? And I was like, yeah, who cares? Because in my own life, it was such a trap. I was like, I don't fit in with this world, so I was just very isolated. And then it's like, no, I love being, I want to be safe as I am with people who already have that, so.
I compare Douglas to the Terminator. He just, no matter how many times Violet basically kicks him out of the picture, he says, I'm coming back, baby. I'm coming back again and again.
It's I'll be back.
Yeah, I'll be back.
I'll be back.
Yeah, I didn't quite get
that's
the
right.
accent
That's
right,
right.
in the
Yeah.
show. That's what threw us off. No, but Douglas is. I mean, I said this before. Douglas is definitely braver than I actually am. But there's in when Douglas is first introduced, you can tell that him, because like he asked Violet out like pretty immediately. You could tell it's not easy for him. I mean, he gets it out, which I think is a lot more than I've done in my past.
Very.
But he, the fact that he does it and he does, have his struggles and stuff, and I think him learning how to really speak up for himself and say, you know what, I do want this. I know it didn't work out the first time, but I'm going to try it again, and I'm going to try it again. And I think Douglas does learn that. That persistence and just speaking his mind truthfully, I think that's Douglas's big journey in the show.
For the two of you, for Andrew and Sue Ann, obviously, with your particular relationship, what was it like to have the type of depth, that you did in the script? With that particular relationship, as far as, the nuances of the autism community, dating, and relationships?
Oh my God. It's funny because the way Jason wrote, it was so intuitive. I've been left on dates. I've had people tell me they're gonna go use the restroom, never come back. I've been stuck, stranded. So that was like, oh my God, this is such a realistic, view of dating as an autistic person and how upsetting it can be. And so but also to find someone that, like Douglas and Violet are two peas in a pod. There's Violet doesn't want to
See it at first.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it takes you a minute.
Right, because there's a lack of self-acceptance, right? There's a no, I want all the freedoms of everyone else, and I could understand that headstrongness and desire for independence, right? That fight. I'm gonna do what I want to do no matter what, and then I'm in trouble. and so the lack of social constraints and understanding why I need to be inside of them has been a long kind of journey along that path. So there's something very sweet about Douglas because he soothes and calms Violet, and I think that's an important aspect of love in general, right? Regardless of whether you're neurotypical or neurodiverse, when you're around people who accept and love you and see you as you are, you're going to thrive. And that was something that I find very beautiful with their relationship. Of course, this is nice, So.
And I think from Douglas's perspective, there's, I just echo Saran, there is something to be said about finding people that that almost operate on a similar wavelength, not necessarily the same, but a similar. And I think having those similarities can be very, very helpful. And it's funny because Douglas, I think his crush is no secret. It's apparent from minute one, and there's definitely a bit of. Because Violet's character, you viewed yourself as kind of the popular girl in the drama club a little bit, and you're the cool one. And I think I get the sense that Douglas was very, people have types, and I think Douglas was very attractive. Oh, you're so cool, but I'm so shy and nerdy, but you're so cool. And I think that's part of kind of what drove Douglas a little bit to go for it. But then eventually, as the show progresses, we start to find stuff in common. And I think that's a big thing is even though, sometimes I've definitely been in dating situations where the conversation's just kind of going like that, where we're approaching a similar topic, and then we just both go in our own, separate directions. And I think with Violet, it's sort of going like that, and then eventually, it aligns a little bit. So I think there was. And there is a sweetness, Douglas is sweet, but there is a sweetness to Violet that, what she wants is very simple and very human and universal, and I think Douglas does see that in her to a degree, and I think that's one of the things that attracts him to her.
When the three of you looked at the script, I mean, after you find out you land the show, did you look at it and say, wow, there's some depth to this?
Sure. I mean, I saw the script before getting the show.
You see the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. I'm not.
It's not Marvel.
I'm not in the biz that way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Marvel, they don't do that. In fact, even the actors don't get to see the whole script, just their scenes, which I actually want to show you. Cut to a clip of Avengers.
It's not.
To answer that's fine. It's 24 years. You think you'd have Avengers teed up, but anyway, a lot of depth, yes. But the truth is a little more selfish of an answer, which is, it's so nice to get a job. And when I found out that I had the job, I mean, I would have done an Avengers movie. I don't care.
Twist his arm, why don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, if given the choice. But no, yeah, we saw it before, and also Jason Kadams, like I said, I was already a fan of his Parenthood, and he did Friday Night Lights. But when you're doing, I was practicing this with a friend of mine, and also my dad helped with it, which is interesting because a lot of the scenes were with the guy who played my dad, and during the auditions, we're crying. Maybe I did a good performance, but the way it's written and layered, like I do a lot of, you do auditions with your friends, to cry from reading scenes, and not because it's necessarily so sad, but because it's so connected. It was just like, oh man, you want to do this. That or Avengers. Am I making enough Avengers jokes? Anyone here?
Just one more.
Yeah.
I'll be back. Which I'm incidentally remembering, I improvised an "I'll be back" joke in the thing that they didn't put in. Big mistake.
They cut it?
They cut it. Well, why would I be doing Arnold Schwarzenegger? I was just hyper. Thanks for your patience, everyone. I hope we're having fun. This is great, but we've been talking for a while. Thank you, Miss Florida. Rick.
Do a backflip.
Want to see a backflip? Who wants to see a backflip?
Yeah.
All right.
No,
That's okay. Who in the audience can do a backflip? Could anyone really do a backflip?
That's the bit.
He's gonna hurt himself.
Oh, I can't do a backflip. I thought somebody.
No,
yeah, I
sit down.
can't.
You just want to see a backflip.
I'd love to see a backflip.
Back sore.
That or the Avengers.
And that's the last one.
Don't get him canceled. Last time you got really excited, you got that person canceled. Will Smith. Every special interest he has in like an entertainment thing. Remember Will Smith with the book and everything?
That's one thing, and leave him alone.
I'm
all right?
a pattern seer.
You having a rough day.
I see the pattern coming. It's coming.
Will.
Oh, no.
Will.
Cut the feed.
No,
time
Will.
together.
We're streaming this.
Our time together, as far as what's left, is short.
In slow motion.
So I'm going to ask the question.
30 feet.
Oh yeah, you hate those.
Sorry, go.
No, you're good.
Hey, look at this.
What?
She's been. No.
This is like exactly.
I'd rather do a
like
backflip than touch those feet. No, stop. Don't. I really don't like that.
I know you don't. You don't like dirty socks. You have to wear clean socks.
All right, go. You got to take charge.
Yeah.
My wife.
Wake it up.
My wife and my kids tell me the same thing.
Well,
you
listen.
got to take charge.
Because until you do, Will Smith. Will Smith. No, we have fun. We have fun here.
So I'm going to ask. The question.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the question that everybody's been wondering for probably about the last 75 minutes.
6'3".
Who is Will Smith?
Season 2. What do we know? Yeah, that's right. Season 2. Season 2.
I think we have to wait and see.
To be continued. We have to. Yeah.
I would have said if you asked us yesterday, I would love for you to talk to the governor about it.
Yeah.
To be honest, we're not sure. It could very well be a no. We might be back as Arnold Schwarzenegger would say casually.
We might be back.
Yeah, but to answer this a little politically, I'm not sure if it's going to come back or not yet. However, it is on Amazon now, and I'm sure a lot of people here didn't know about the show before coming, and I'm glad that you wanted to come and you saw that. It's a beautiful, really good show. Thank you. Though the subject matter is autism, it's really, and a lot of people will be able to connect to that, especially part of the community. It's really a show that just is about whatever any human wants, which is just finding connection, and everyone has their own obstacles, and it's really beautiful. And when people tell me that they love it, like I said before, I'm able to say, I know, same, and I'm proud of it. And I really hope for those of you who haven't checked it out, check it out. And for those of you who want a season 2, write your governor.
Yeah.
How many people in the audience have actually seen As We See It?
Oh, cool.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
How many people are going home and getting an Amazon Prime subscription?
Hey, you get 30 days free, so
That's right,
watch it and cancel it.
30-day
Or
free
keep
trial?
it. But I'm saying, it's not that big of a commitment. It's not like Disney Plus, where if you want to watch the Avengers, you got to pay for it right away. Avengers.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
In addition to a potential season 2, what's next for the three of you? What's coming up?
Go ahead.
Rick has been helping me audition, thank God. So he's incredible. He's so good. Like what he was talking about, like he's so fast at editing, and he made this like clip for me, like because this is why if you want to act, you should have a community of actors. So it was like, oh my God, I was so impressed. It was so funny, and it was good because it was like a stand-up thing. So I was like, he would be perfect.
And so if anybody here needs help with your auditions, you could ask Sue Ann, because she's going to help you now because she owes me. She said she'd buy me lunch, but not with those feet.
I'll give you a free reader. Yeah.
Just similarly, just keeping on the audition train. I'm associate directing an outdoor show for individuals on the spectrum with a New York theater group called Trusty Sidekick. And then just a lot of New York advocacy, and then hopefully more shows and acting in the future. But
oh, I'm also producing. I don't know if I could talk too much about it, but I love space. I was on that one-way trip to Mars. I like Elon Musk, so I'm that type of So I'm on that train and seeing if I can continue creating something in that world as a producer, which
Cool.
is really fun.
Very cool.
You want to come to Mars with me?
Put some shoes on. I have a podcast. It's called Take Your Shoes Off. I named it that because that's an easy one that everyone understands, but it's just rule 1 of 80. And I'm just very proud of it. It comes out every week. It's on YouTube. It's audio too, but YouTube, I do 3 cameras. We have live action animation, and there's a lot of visuals and editing in it. And I do talk a bit about OCD and autism on it, and a lot of people come on, a lot of athletes or musicians, actors, directors, and we'll talk about stuff that aren't necessarily written on their face that they deal with and go through. And also from both As We See It and the podcast is where I get people reaching out that after where the way you connected when you see from a Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, and you're like, oh, they identify. Just from talking about some of these things where numerous people have told me that they have also since been diagnosed with autism or found something in their family where they were able to. And I'm just really proud of that. Yeah.
Rick, how do you decide who's going to be a guest week to week?
It's the hardest part of it is booking the people. Generally, the way I like doing it the most is if there's somebody who I want to have a conversation with. It's very hard to have conversations with people, just in general, let alone 90 minutes. Like this has to be structured. So if there's somebody that I'm interested in, have questions, I reach out to them, and they say yes a lot. Or my friends, people who make me laugh. If you can make me laugh, I want you around me and on the podcast, and it feels good. So that's usually how I do it. And yes, Mom, or my manager, Mom, also brought up, I have a show that is going to be out on ABC in the fall that I'm part of. It's called Not Dead Yet.
Yay!
Thank you. That's the 3rd job I told you I ever had. That was from them seeing other work. But really, the podcast is what I'm the most proud of telling people to see.
I'm going to live in a hypothetical world again. If there were a season 2, what are some of the themes or the elements that you would like to see potentially explored?
Jason was talking about wanting to have just kind of expand the world a little bit, have nonverbal characters, have characters with different sexual identities. As far as what it is for our individual characters, I mean, there's so much room, but the idea of having people who are have different life experiences to also, which is just cool for us, being able to meet and learn and talk and. But that's, I mean, the one thing that I do know. I'm not sure if you know of anything.
Yeah, no, I remember like asking who our favorite guest star actors would be that we would want to see on, and I'm, you know, there's a lot of people who are on the spectrum who also act, you know, and I think about people who came before us, like Daryl Hannah. Like, she played that mermaid, like, amazing, right? Now you know why, because I was like, oh my God, poor thing, you know? Yeah. So Anthony Hopkins.
Rainn Wilson from The Office, Dwight.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Wow, there's so many interesting people that, you know, now you look at them, you're like, oh, that's like so, you know, so to see a whole spectrum of very different neurodivergent populations, you know, like Jason said, there was going to be a mute character, which is incredible because some of us have selective mutism when we're stressed. I can relate to that. And I can't. You know, you can't relate to that. You know, like, because it's the freeze, like the freeze response. What is that? The adrenalized, like, fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah. Fight, flight, freeze.
Right, because we're so, the sensitivity, and to show that. So, because you can be, like, you know, people are in dangerous situations sometimes, you know, and they can't advocate for themselves with words. So how are you going to, you know, let people know? Not everybody is the same, and just because someone's not verbal doesn't mean, you know, like teach the world to be kinder and gentler.
Yeah, which you have to see it. You have to see it. You just have to see it.
Be exposed to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to be aware of it. And that's unfortunately the sad part about, just kind of a sad commentary on the society that we live in, is that a lot of people aren't aware. Sometimes they don't want to be aware.
Yeah, a lot of people are scared to ask. Something I learned as an adult, people are scared to ask questions. They think they're going to offend, and or they think it's confrontational. And the alternative is to indirectly ignore, walk away from.
Which is worse.
And when people being uncomfortable has really bad PR, I feel like, because people try to avoid it so much because it doesn't feel good, but it doesn't feel good because you avoid it and you're not used to it and you don't have the tools to deal with it. But uncomfort is no different than anything else. I mean, we're hungry all the time and you deal with it. Like, being comfortable with uncomfortable, like my old boss said to me once, it's just experience uncomfort and then you're gonna learn things. I've said this on my podcast before, but I feel like answers aren't that hard to come by. Questions are what's difficult. And if you're fortunate enough to have a question, to not ask it when that's the hard part.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ann Pien, Rick Glassman, Andrew Duff, part of the cast of As We See It.
Thank you guys very much for staying through this whole thing.